Christmas is usually one of the brightest times of the year. There are lights everywhere, music everywhere, smiles, gifts, food, celebrations. But for many people, Christmas is also one of the darkest times of the year. It's when loneliness feels louder, when grief feels heavier, when memories hurt more than usual. And if that's you today, I want you to know something right from the start. Christmas was made exactly for people just like you. Now, listen to these words from the prophet Isaiah, and this was written hundreds and hundreds of years before Jesus was even born. The people who walked in darkness have seen a great light. Those who dwelt in a land of deep darkness, on them has a light shone. This is from Isaiah 9:2. Now, the context of this is that, Isaiah, he wasn't writing to a people who were living comfortably. He was speaking to a people who were afraid, people who were oppressed, people who felt that they were forgotten by God. They were walking in darkness, not just emotional darkness, but political, spiritual, and national darkness. But Isaiah says something remarkable. Not that the darkness disappeared, not that life suddenly became easy, but that a light appeared in that darkness. And that light was Jesus. Now, when Jesus was finally born, Israel was still in a dark place. They were under Roman rule. They had no king, they had no independence, and for hundreds of years, God had seemed silent. And yet, this is when God chose to act. He didn't do it with armies, not with power, not with wealth, but he did it with a baby of all things, born to a poor family, laid in a manger, no palace, no spotlight. And this was all intentional. Jesus didn't come above the darkness. He came into it. Let that sink in for a moment. God could have entered the world any way that he wanted. But instead, he chose vulnerability. He chose humility. He chose closeness. Because Jesus didn't come to scare the broken, the darkness away. He came to say, I know what darkness feels like, and I will sit with you here. You are not alone. That's why Isaiah's words matter so much. Light didn't wait for darkness to leave. Light entered right into the darkness. Now, today, Christmas looks very different from that first Christmas back in Bethlehem. Bright decorations, candy canes, songs about joy and cheer, Christmas movies. Now, of course, all of those things, they're good. Christmas should be celebrated. But for many people, those bright lights only make the darkness feel deeper. Some are grieving loved ones, some are far from family, some feel isolated, anxious, forgotten. And if that's you, please hear this. Christmas joy is not pretending everything is okay. It's about God coming close when things are not okay. The Gospel of John puts it this way. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. That's John 1:5. Jesus is that light. A light that darkness cannot extinguish, a light that suffering cannot erase, a light that loneliness cannot overpower, which means if you are in a dark place today, you are not disqualified from hope. You are exactly the person Jesus came for. It's an invitation. It's an invitation that if this season feels heavy, if your heart feels tired, if you feel lonely. Jesus gently invites you to open up his heart or open up your heart to him. You don't need perfect faith. You don't need the perfect polished prayers. Just honesty. A simple prayer like, Jesus, I need light. Jesus, I need you. Jesus, I don't want to be alone. That's enough. And if you're able, I encourage you to go to church, any church this Christmas, not for the performance of just going to church, not for appearances, but for presence. Because God often meets us through the presence of others. You know, we talk a lot about gifts at Christmas. Gifts are wonderful, but the greatest gift of Christmas has never been something wrapped up all pretty. It's the greatest present of presence. The presence of people who sit with us. And above all else, the presence of God who never leaves us. A God who stepped into history so that no one would have to suffer alone. A God who entered the deepest darkness to bring lasting hope. So if this Christmas feels dark for you, remember Isaiah's promise. The people who walked in darkness have seen a great light. And that light is still shining. You are not forgotten. You are not alone. And darkness is not the end of your story. This Christmas, may you receive the greatest gift of all, the presence of God. Amen.